Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
I got to be honest with you. I'm still pissed. I am still mad about what happened last night in the championship game of the Four Nations face-off as Team USA falls in overtime to Connor McDavid, McJesus, and Team Canada. Oh, God. That one sucked. That was, oh, man. I was fuming last night, furious. And shout out to everybody that tuned in and everybody that came out to the Dignitary Cafe to hang out with Ian Beckles and myself and everybody out there, the whole We the Thunder crew, Shooter Stash, Schoolie, Tampa Sports Girl, the whole crew. I left that place last night pissed off. I got home, I was pissed off. Before I went to bed, I was pissed off. I woke up pissed off. God, it was so freaking close. They had it in their hands. They had it. That freaking hurt bad. We're going to talk a lot about the Four Nations face-off here in the first hour. We got Greg Linnelli also joining us at 1:30, Lightning Radio voice, pre- and post-game host. We'll get his 2 cents on the whole Four Nations thing. He wasn't a big proponent of it. So I want to see if his opinion swayed over the last couple of weeks because there was some fantastic hockey. Not just in that game last night in Boston. And then we'll talk some baseball at 1 o'clock with our good buddy JD Urso. You see the UT hat right here. They got a big weekend series coming up against Lynn tonight, starting tonight at 6 o'clock at the Birdcage. Go ahead and check them out there. But yeah, we're going to talk a lot about the Four Nations. We're also going to discuss the new rule that the Yankees have put in place about facial hair. The Rays start their spring training, ironically enough, at Steinbrenner Field against the Yankees at 1 o'clock today. And then Chris Latvala, Pinellas County Commissioner, who has been on our show before with some scathing comments towards Stu Sternberg and the Tampa Bay Rays. So, wow. Unbelievable to hear what he had to say. So we'll play that for you a little bit later. But we got to start with the Four Nations face-off. I want to hear from you, your opinions on that game, on the tournament as a whole. Dave Terry says, Jay, the big winner here as a whole is the game of hockey. Yeah, I know it stings. Good morning to you, Sergio and Hammer. Yep, that one certainly did hurt. I think the thing that bothered me the most was that the big guys for the big guys, let me say this again. The thing that bothered me the most was that the big guys for Team USA just did not show up last night. And they didn't rise to the occasion. And the two guys that I'm looking at this morning or this afternoon, the two guys I'm looking at right now are Austin Matthews and Connor Hellebuyck, the captain of this team and the goaltender of this team. Connor Hellebuyck has been arguably the best goalie in the league the last couple of seasons. Reigning, defending Vezina Trophy winner. Probably going to win it again this year. And he got outplayed by Jordan Binnington last night. The rebound control from Hellebuyck right off the bat looked sketchy. The puck was bouncing all over the place. He did not look in control all night long. It would have been a lot worse if the Team USA's defense didn't step up. Hell, we even saw JT Miller come up and make a big play against Sidney Crosby at the end of the game there. He was not sharp. Not at all. And I want to look at a guy like Austin Matthews, too. This is a guy who hasn't won a Game 7. This is a dude who loses the draw in overtime, loses Connor McDavid in the middle of the ice, And I have people on social media telling me he's a great two-way player. Why? Because people have told you that? Because he finished third in the Selke Award voting last year, which was one of the biggest crocks of shit that I've ever seen when it comes to awards in professional sports. Get real. Why is he a good defensive forward? Because he's gotten better at faceoffs? Okay, that's part of it. He has the puck a lot of the time. What do you mean he's playing defense? If he was that good at playing defense, why the hell was Jack Eichel the matchup center against Connor McDavid and not Austin Matthews? You're a guy that's a 40, 50, 60 goal scorer in the league. You can't score one goal in the Four Nations faceoff? 0 goals, 3 assists. Not good enough, bud. Give me Dylan Larkin. Give me Matthew Tkachuk. Give me Brady Tkachuk. Give me Jake Gensel. I'll take any 4 of those guys over Austin Matthews in a big game. People defending him because, oh, it was just one play. That's all it takes. All it takes is one snafu, one mental lapse, one error in your own defensive zone, and that's it. I'm sorry. Whether you think it's fair or not, that's the reality of the situation. Austin Matthews let Team USA down. Did he have a terrible game? No. Did he have a great game? No. You're the captain of the red, white, and blue. You're one of the best goal scorers of this generation. And you consistently come up small in big games. You do it for Toronto, which we all love, but you do it for Team USA, which we all hate. I don't get the defending of Austin Matthews. You cannot tell me that he played well enough for this team to win the championship. Telling me he's a two-way center. He's not Barkov. He's not Kopitar. He's not Bergeron. Get the hell out. He's not even as good of a defensive center as Anthony Cirelli. What are we even talking about? Your job as a centerman in your own zone when you lose the draw is you better stay on the other center. You better keep an eye on him. Now, the longer the shift goes and you start passing players to other players and the puck starts moving, players starts moving, okay, things like that happen. But it wasn't very long from when the puck dropped to when Connor McDavid found the puck all alone in the slot there and won the game. Terrible. Terrible by Austin Matthews. And somebody asked me, oh, what do you think about Austin Matthews as the captain of the... No, I don't want any part of that. None. He hasn't won anything. Give me a guy that's going to go to the dirty areas. Give me a guy like Brady Tkachuk, who's clearly not 100%, going to the front of the net last night and scoring a goal. You see when Austin Matthews is in tight there, what happens? Unable to get the job done. You need players of that caliber to be able to rise to the level of the competition. Enough with the excuses for this guy. He plays in the hockey capital of the world in Toronto. Everybody wants to act like this guy is the greatest player since sliced bread. He is not even close to Connor McDavid. Not even close to a prime Sidney Crosby. Not even freaking close. He was a shell of himself last night. He's a guy that when he has the puck, he's all the way out by the blue line. We don't want the center of the first line playing out by the blue line. Get your ass in front of the net. Too many people giving that guy a pass today. You know what? If you're the star, if you're the captain, you got to wear it. Today is the day you got to wear it. You got to wear that like I'm wearing this Lightning jersey today because I'm wearing black because it's a sad day when it comes to USA hockey. And I know people want to say, talk about growth of the game, and we'll get to that in a second. We're talking strictly about what happened last night. Adam Fox, you are the best defenseman on the Rangers. You are a Norris Trophy winner. But my friend, you are not nearly as good as many people think that you are. Defensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. A lot. He's not the most physical player. He's extremely patient with the puck and very smart in the offensive zone. A very smart hockey player. But I'm never looking at Adam Fox going, wow, that guy's a grinder. Wow, that guy's really tough to play against. That goal that Sam Bennett scored, you could see that pass coming from Marner a mile away. Stay in the middle of the ice. He commits to the middle, easy pass to Sam Bennett, and then he beats Connor Hellebuck to the short side. That's on Fox. That's also on Connor Hellebuyck. I didn't think it was a great shot either. Beating him to the short side. You got to make yourself big. You got to come up with some big saves. How many times last night did you listen to that game? Did you watch that game and go, wow, Hellebuyck made a great save? How many? Less than 5, if any. How many times you say that about Jordan Binnington? Yeah, okay. Let's say he's not a guy that looks super calm between the pipes. He's never going to be confused with a guy like Carey Price. But Jordan Binnington left it all out there. Give me Jordan Binnington 7 days a week and twice on Thursday night. There's a reason why John Cooper went with him. There's a reason why he didn't go to anybody else. Because he knew that guy had balls the size of Quebec. He was going to come up big in a situation like last night. Glove saves, moving side to side, fighting through traffic, seeing the puck from distance. We spoke so much about what the U.S. brought to the table when it came to the grit and the tenacity. I don't think they matched the level of Team Canada last night. I wasn't particularly enthralled with the game overall as a whole. I thought it was a pretty kind of so-so game. And maybe that's because in comparison to the other one, didn't have as much juice. But Matthew Tkachuk didn't play much. You could tell Brady Tkachuk was compromised. And when you have two defensive teams that clog up the neutral zone, you're going to get a game like last night. It's not going to be the most aesthetically appealing. And you got to grind it out. And whether it was McAvoy's absence, whether they didn't have the same kind of fight with the juices flowing after the 3 dust-ups there in the first 9 seconds, whether it was playing at home, because, when you play on the road, there's a little bit of that us against the world mentality. I just thought it was just a kind of a standard game. The U.S. thought that they were going to wear Canada down, and that's not what happened. It's not what happened. I was not impressed by the performance last night by a lot of people wearing the red, white, and blue. Jacob Slavin, God bless you, because that man is an absolute monster. And I hope he wins the Norris Trophy this year. Can we get away from the Norris Trophy being just the guy that scores the most points for defense? It says it in your name. Defenseman, your first priority is to keep the puck out of your net and to defend your zone. You cannot tell me that there is a better defender in the National Hockey League than Jacob Slavin. Don't argue with a wall. Cale Makar is the most athletically gifted and talented offensive defenseman. And, of course, most years he's going to get the nod for the Norris Trophy because that somehow is the way it's kind of shaping, and that's the direction that we've gone. But when you want to talk about taking care of your own end, nobody does it better than Jacob Slavin. Nobody. Canada will tell you that. I look at some of the other guys that didn't show up. You look at Vinny Trocheck, nothing. You look at guys like Brock Nelson and Chris Kreider. Kreider gave you 1 goal. Not good enough. Bottom 6 guys. I told you on the program yesterday. Bottom 6. Sam Bennett was the guy that came up big. Third liner, scoring that goal for Marner. That's what you need. And shout out to our guy, Braden Coburn, who was on the program yesterday talking about Jake Sanderson, because nobody was talking about that narrative. Charlie McAvoy's not in there. Quinn Hughes, okay, nobody else got sick. So what about Jake Sanderson? How come nobody was talking? There were some easy storylines. Everybody always wants to talk about, like, the growth of the game. I'm not going to talk about the same old stuff that everybody else is talking about here on the show, okay? That's just not the way it goes. The game has grown. Yes. It was geopolitically driven. Yes. Trudeau wants to get out there and start tweeting. It doesn't make you any better just because you're not Donald Trump, okay? You think, oh, you don't want to take our game. You don't want to take this tournament. It's everybody's game. Okay, everybody. There's Americans that play it. There are Canadians that play it. All right? Keep that political BS out here. This was a great hockey game because it was a great hockey game. It's because hockey players put their bodies on the line for quote-unquote meaningless games. These guys care about the crest on the front. That matters. They realize that the only way for them to be successful in this game is to leave it all out there. There's no half-assing it. There's no load management. You're not letting down your team. You're not letting down your teammates. You're not letting down the fans. You can't do that. Hockey's not for the faint of heart. Look at how many people were locked into the game last night. And it was an air of refreshment because people could look at professional athletes and go, that guy, I like that guy. Love his effort. That's the kind of guy that I'm going to show my kid and be like, that's the kind of effort. That's the kind of guy right there. That was a tournament that the USA had every chance to win. But Canada stuck with it. I thought they themselves played pretty well defensively. Jordan Bennington came up big. John Cooper did a good job of keeping things fresh. Sam Bennett scored. Connor McDavid did what your best player is supposed to do. You get an opportunity in front of the net, you finish the damn thing. You go top shelf where mama keeps the peanut butter, and that's it. You're the road team, but you go home happy. Too many excuses for why this didn't work or why that didn't work. You got to go out there and play the game. And USA, the team USA, was not good enough. It wasn't. So that's what I had to say about the game in particular. Okay. We talk about growth of the game. I thought it was fantastic. Okay. When you look at how many people, and shout out to PK Subban doing, I said it last night, he was doing the Lord's work the last couple of days, going on ESPN and pretty much browbeating anybody that was on the panel with him when they're asking what was so great about this, what's so great about the NHL, which is kind of ironic that he has to go on the morning shows and talk about this when ESPN has TV rights to hockey. You see all the games on ESPN Plus, ESPN, and ABC, and PK Subban has to go on and let everybody know the reason why less and less people are tuning into basketball and why people that aren't even hockey fans are just encapsulated with what happened in the Four Nations face-off. And he articulated some of the same things that I just said, leaving it all out there, never taking an off day, the hardest trophy to win in sports, the best game to watch live. I mean, just think about all of these different cliches that people say when they talk about hockey. When you're a hockey fan for life. It never changes. Even if your team sucks, you could go to the game and it's fun as hell to watch because it could be a fight. It could be a goal. It's the speed. It's the size. It's the strength. It's the skill. The fact that these guys can do all those things while skating on skates is just crazy to me. Yeah, you got to be able to stick handle. You got to be able to be tough. You got to be able to pass the puck. You got to be able to win faceoffs. If you're a goalie, you got to do all this different stuff. But you got to do it on skates. You're not doing it on your feet. You're not wearing shoes. You're not wearing cleats out there. You're wearing skates on ice. Unforgiving ice. The game has grown, and I think it will help the future. And I think it will help when we come to the Olympics. But I hope imminently it helps the National Hockey League. I'm hoping that it helps the regular season and the postseason and get more people invested into what's going on. I think it's crazy. And the National Hockey League did not do their teams a service by making a game for tomorrow at 12:30. Minnesota and Detroit play at 12:30 tomorrow. What is the need for that? If you have to play Saturday, fine. Play everybody at night. Tomorrow is not one of those days you're worried about staggering games. You're worried about these guys that just left it all out there in a competition representing their country, not being able to perform for their team as we get closer and closer to the postseason. Got to make smarter decisions when it comes to that. Every single game tomorrow should be at 7 or 8 o'clock. And, whatever time zone. If you're playing out west, 7 o'clock out there. So 10 o'clock our time, 7 o'clock out there. 12:30 tomorrow? Wow. Lightning play Sunday night, 6 o'clock at Amalie Arena against the Seattle Kraken. They got a back-to-back, belly-to-belly. Panthers and Lightning. That ain't going to be easy for them. But I look at all of the attention, all of the focus of this tournament, and there's no way that you can look at it and say, oh, this was a bad thing. Not at all. And it's my favorite sport, so I'm happy. I think it's a good thing. And the fact that I'm still mad about it, the fact that I'm still pissed that Team USA lost, that means they did something right. Because it made an indelible impression on people that are diehard hockey fans and newcomers. That's what you want. That is the draw when it comes to sports. Sports at the ultimate level, sports that really bring in eyeballs and bring in cash are the ones that can attract the diehard fan and attract the casual fan. That's why you see when boxing is big and when USC has big fights and when they have big fighters and people want to tune in. You may not know a guy like Brock Lesnar. You may not be a big UFC fan, but when Brock Lesnar fought, you're like, I'm watching that. Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, John Jones, Mike Tyson, right? Think about those kind of things. When those guys were involved with combat sports in their prime, you didn't have to be a diehard fan. You were just a casual and you would still tune in. You would go to a party with the fight on, what have you. Same thing with football. Obviously, the pinnacle with the Super Bowl. But even big-time football games, you'll go or you'll watch because it's the most popular sport in this country. Whether you're a diehard fan, whether you're a person that loves gambling, a person that loves fantasy, a person that just loves sports as a whole, or you're just a person that enjoys the game. You don't have that much with hockey. You have the diehards. You have the people that, are season ticket holders. You get people that go to a handful of games every year. A person that moved from a traditional hockey market to a Tampa, to other places in the United States that love their hockey, and they'll find whatever it takes. They'll do whatever it takes. They'll find whatever method to go watch their sport. But now you have something like the Four Nations Face-Off. Now you're bringing in some casuals. Now people go, that McDavid guy's really good, huh? Yeah, go check him out. He's going to be at Amalie Arena then. Man, the Kachucks, they're pretty badass. Yeah, go check them out when they're at Amalie Arena next time against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Because you think that rivalry between Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel is over? No, sir. No, sir. That has just started. And when you look at the Lightning and Panthers, you want to talk about taking a rivalry to a next level. What you have to do is face off in the playoffs. What you need is for both teams to be good. And you need both teams to have success. And you need little kind of intermittent rivalries and intermittent jabs at each other and intermittent kind of back and forths. And I don't like you because of this. I hate you because of this. The next time that the Lightning and Panthers square off is March 3rd. It's a Monday night down in South Florida against the Panthers. And then the next time that the Panthers return to Amalie to take on the Lightning is, actually in April 15th, tax day. What a night that's going to be. Circle that one on the calendar. April 15th, Amalie Arena, Panthers and Lightning. The gloves will probably get dropped off there. Drop the gloves one more time. Shout out to our guy Dolan. Happy Friday, Jay and everyone. I was pissed last night. Matthew should have ended it. Yeah, I mean, listen, when you are the captain of the team, you got to wear that. And you got to put the team on your back. You got to go out there and say, I am not going to stop until I lead my team to victory. Whether that's with a big hit, whether that's with an assist, whether that's a game-saving block in front of your own net, or scoring a freaking goal. I don't understand why he gets a pass. He does not get a pass. He's one of, if not the best goal scorer currently in the National Hockey League, in the world. He had 0 goals in 3 games. If he's not going to score goals, who is? Who scored last night for Team USA? Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson. 2 Senators. Ottawa, man, they must have loved posting that on their social media, huh? All their Canadian fans watching a couple Americans score. So overall, was the Four Nations a success? Yes. For Team USA, maybe. I don't know for Team USA, because for them, and there's only 4 teams, one is a winner and the rest are losers. I don't like consolation prizes. I don't like silver linings. When we're just talking about Team USA and what they did or what they didn't do, they came up short. And it's going to sting for a while. It's going to sting because their best players didn't play their best when the lights shined and shone the brightest. Got to make an adjustment. Or it's going to be the same old thing over and over and over again. Now, a lot of excitement going on this weekend. We got so many great things going on. Rays spring training today at Steinbrenner Field, taking on the Yankees. It feels so good to be able to say that there's baseball once again. And here are the starting lineup. You're looking at the Rays lineup and travel squad. A couple of starters in there. Josh Lowe is going to bat leadoff. He'll be in right field. Again, the game starts at 1 o'clock at Steinbrenner Field. Junior Caminero will bat second. He'll play third. Jonathan Aranda, he bats third. He'll play second. Christopher Morel in left field. He'll bat cleanup. Ben Rortfed will do the catching and bat fifth. And then Nigel Morgan at first. He will bat sixth. Cam Meisner in there. Coco Montes, USF product. He bats eighth. He'll play shortstop. So some good things there when it comes to the Rays. It just feels good. And I know a lot of people are taking pictures and they're back out there and they're happy. They're happy that baseball is back. I know it's going to be a very, very unique season when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays. Playing games outside, you're going to have to deal with the weather. There's going to be some really, really hot games in July and August. What are they going to do? I think they're just going to deal with it. That's it. I mean, it's nothing crazier than that. They're just going to deal with it. No bitching, no moaning, no complaining. Just not the way it goes. All right, so the other thing. Chris Latvala, you guys remember him, the commissioner for the Pinellas County Commissioners, who has been just very staunch in making sure that the Rays, in regards to this new stadium deal, are doing everything that they said that they were going to do. Well, yesterday there was a meeting for the Pinellas County Commissioners, and my guy took a flamethrower to Stu Sternberg, Brian Auld, and also Matt Silverman. You guys, we have to hear this. This was an opportunity for him to go out and really speak his mind and speak his piece, because there is some back and forth. And if you have listened to anybody, even Chris Latvala, who has not thought that the Tampa Bay Times has been 100% transparent when it comes to the reporting of this whole thing. We had Chris Latvala on a couple weeks ago. We had John Romano on earlier this week from the Tampa Bay Times. They both said it's inevitable that Stu Sternberg is going to sell this team. Well, after some of the comments made by Matt Silverman and Brian Auld on the Countdown opening day on WDAE last Thursday, it took a lot of people by surprise. Because for myself, who was there for over 10 years, Countdown opening day was one of those things that really got a lot of people excited about the upcoming baseball season. They were jacked up. They were ready to go. They're okay. This is baseball. There was players that would come in the studio. Awesome. But for some reason, this year, the Rays decided that we're going to use Countdown opening day as a platform to let everybody know where we stand when it comes to this whole stadium saga. And I know a lot of people are pissed. I know a lot of people look at this situation like, can we be over it already? But we're getting closer and closer. We're a month and 10 days away from the deadline where the Rays have to show proof of, hey, we got this money. We want to go forward with this new stadium in downtown St. Petersburg. But every single time that we hear from either side, I just feel like we're not even close. So here's what Commissioner Chris Latvala had to say yesterday. It's about 5 minutes long. Let's listen to it together, because this right here, it does not sound good.
We normally would not use a county meeting to respond to comments made on a radio station. But since those comments were directed at county staff, I would like to. Last week, one of the Rays presidents in a team-sponsored radio program on a local station decided to blame county staff for the delay that occurred in October. And I'm not going to talk about that delay that much, except because we were all here, or at least 4 of us were here, since Commissioner Flowers just left. But I will remind folks that county staff, including our administrator, were literally living at the Emergency Operations Center in the month of October. Several of them were there for weeks. I asked Barry this morning, because I thought he was there for weeks. He corrected me and said he was there for a month. So the meeting that we delayed this vote in October Barry was living at the EOC. And so Matt Silverman chose to blame Barry for not telling him that we were going to delay a meeting. Barry was more worried about our homeless residents that had lost their homes during the hurricanes, people that had lost businesses. And had that October meeting been so important to the Rays, I would imagine they would have been here. They were not here. Had that meeting had been so important to the Rays, I imagine it would have made it into the contract as a deadline. That was not in the contract. Our deadline was in March, as has been stated numerous times. So Matt, Stu, and Brian are making things up. And I'm going to use their first names because they don't deserve anything more. I've cried 2 times in my public career. I'm not going to mention the first time because that was something that happened in February of 2018 when I served in the legislature, and it was a tragedy that happened in South Florida. The second time was during these 2 hurricanes. 15 of our residents died, and it is a miracle that not more of them did not lose their lives. And it's because of the heroic actions of our sheriff, of our first responders, of our county administrator, and our county staff. I know that several of us I know Kathleen Peters got calls the night of Hurricane Milton from people at the beach that needed to be rescued. I got 2 of those calls. And, Brian, Matt, and Stu need to be reminded that the hurricane did not just hit the trough. It hit a bunch of other folks, and folks that are not millionaires and billionaires. So they need to frankly get over themselves. And they keep talking about $100 million, shortfall that they now have because of a 21-day delay. Well, they need to show that. If a 21-day delay caused a $150 million overrun that our stadium expert had said he's never seen before, they need to show that. They need to show that to the media in Tampa Bay. I'm sure the media will be more than happy to see that. They need to show that on paper. The only time that we've asked them to show something on paper was when they said that they spent $50 million, and what they showed us was that they spent $11 million. They are literally lying to our residents. And I welcome them to come to a meeting and show us that they have a $150 million shortfall that was the cause of a 21-day delay. I doubt they will do that because they don't do anything that does not involve a lawyer. And I'm sorry that I'm passionate about this because I don't care what they say about me. They said I threw my weight around. I actually thought that was funny. I kind of like the fat jokes. But don't attack our county staff and try to blame them because you weren't doing your job and you didn't bother showing up to a meeting and that you didn't bother to call us or anything like that. And don't act like you're the only people to be affected by a hurricane. There are 30 owners in Major League Baseball, and I'm sure that there are other fan bases that are complaining about their owners and wish they had different owners, but we literally are the only fan base that is stuck with the guy who uses 2 hurricanes to try to figure out a way to make money off of it, which is atrocious. And they should be ashamed of themselves.
Wow. That was a lot to handle from Chris Latvala, the Pinellas County Commissioner. We've had him on the show before, so we know that he's not happy with how everything has gone. And I know people will say, well, he was holding out on this because he wanted the Rays to play in Clearwater. Once he knew that the Rays weren't going to stay in Pinellas County, that's when he pivoted, right? I mean, there's documentation of that. So when you look at what he is saying there about the Rays, I just don't know how the Rays can really expect people to trust this ownership group. It's tough, man. You wish there would be something where it was like, well, maybe he's only looking at it. What more else do you have to say than what Chris had to say there? When you have an independent party that is a stadium expert tell you that delay is not going to cost $150 million, and the Rays say that it is, and then there's nothing to show for it. I mean, think about that. If your kid comes up to you and he goes, hey, I need $300 for a new pair of sneakers. Really? That's pretty expensive. Show me what the sneakers look like. And your kid goes, nah, no, just trust me. It's $300. No. Show me the sneakers. Show me the price tag. Show me if we can go somewhere else and get them a little bit cheaper. See if you got a Dick's gift card somewhere. Something. No. Just trust me. Just trust me. Let me ask you, as a Rays fan, as Rays Nation out there, where's the trust level with you when it comes to Stu Sternberg and Matt Silverman and Brian Holt? And I feel bad because speaking to Matt and Brian over the years, I mean, they seem like really good guys, and they're right now, or they have been, the mouthpiece for Stu. So a lot of the things that they're saying, I don't know if necessarily that's things that they believe. They have to speak for Stu when he's not there, whether it's good or bad. I mean, just think about behind closed doors what these guys are talking about with each other, right? What do we got to do here? How do we get this in a situation where we can get what we want? I mean, that's what everybody does, right? In business. I get that. I understand that aspect of it. It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it better. But when you look at these Rays Stadium issues and you hear things like that, I mean, my God, there is no other way, is there? There is no other way than Stu selling this team, whether it's sooner or later. Chris seems to think it'll happen in the next 3 months. Our guy, John Romano, doesn't think it'll happen for maybe a year or two. But one of the big things in that deal was that the surrounding area for the stadium, Stu was going to own that even if he sold the team. Now, that could be one of the reasons why he doesn't, because my whole thing is, if you're the Rays and you don't like the deal, right? Why don't you just rip the whole thing up and do another one? Think about that, right? Why, if the Rays are unhappy about this deal, why don't they rip it up and just start it again? Yeah, they might be late. They might be late on it, but why don't they just rip it up and do something different? Move the deadlines to where you want them. No, because there's things that were agreed to in that deal that they don't want to give up. Now, there's also about the item for the Woodson African American Museum that has applied for county funding for their new museum in the gas plant district. That funding was supposed to be matched by the Rays and Hines. So if they aren't going to pay their half, I mean, it's meaningless if the county commission votes on it. So it's not good. It's not good. And it kind of leaves, and I hope everybody out there can kind of separate the two, because I know there's people out there that look at this entire situation going, how can you support the Rays? How can you still want to go out there? It's the same way I can support this country, even though people don't necessarily love what Donald Trump says or does. Because I want to focus on the good. I want to focus on the good people. I want to focus on the people that are saying the right things, right? Just because you disagree with what the owner or what the president says, I'm not going to not support the Rays. I'm not going to not support this country. I'm going to focus on the good. It doesn't mean I'm oblivious or ignorant to that stuff, but I'm not going to not cheer for Kevin Cash and not going to cheer for Brady North and not going to cheer for Alex Faedo and Brian Pepio and a lot of these guys that I've come to know and really like over the years because of what is going on with the stadium saga. And I encourage everybody out there that is watching this to do the same thing. Regardless if this team is going to be here for the next 3 years, the next 30 years, the next 300 years, whatever. It's here right now. Let's support the players that are there. It's not their fault. What are they going to do? And speaking of somebody yesterday, somebody that knows all about that Tampa Bay Rays locker room, like the players know. The players know what's going on. They're never going to admit it. They're never going to say it. But they know what the optics are. They know what the vision of this franchise is. They know people look at them as like, hell of a team, scrappy as hell. But what's going on there with the owner and the stadium? We don't expect to be here for more than just a few years. That's the reality of the situation. Again, they're not going to sit there because you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you. I understand that. But these guys aren't oblivious to the world. They have social media too. They know what's going on. And I hope for the Rays, the players themselves, like, I want to see Junior Caminero as a lifelong Ray. I want to see all these guys that are coming up, the Carson Williams of the worlds and the Morgans of the worlds and the Isaacs and the Simpsons of the world. I want to see all of those guys, all of them, come up together and spend as much of their career with the Rays as possible. Because that's the type of thing that's going to build a fan base, is when you have players within your organization that are there and they're drafted and they're developed and they're lifers. And I know it's tough for some people to realize that kind of thing, but just look at the Lightning. For all the comparisons that we do when it comes to the owners with, oh yeah, well, if Sue was just a little bit more like Jeff Finnick. Okay, well, we know that's not the case. But just look at player familiarity. Look at how many people have a jersey of Victor Hedman that bought it 6 years ago. How many people look out at bought a Nikita Kucherov 7 years ago, Andrei Vasilevsky 8 years ago, and still have it because he's their man. He's their guy. Those guys are probably going to be Lightning players for life. So you invest knowing. People want to know. Listen, as much as there are a bunch of people out there that go to different restaurants and try a lot of different things, you know what the majority of the people do? They order the same thing from the same place every single time they go out. You know, every single time you go to Applebee's, you're going to get that Applebee burger. You know, every single time you go to Outback, you're going to get that Bloomin' Onion, right? It's consistent. Maybe you're one of those people that just goes out once a month and Outback is your spot, right? You love consistency. The older you get, the less change you want. You kind of figured out your life. You're like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to eat. These are the kind of people I want to surround myself with. Why is that any different in sports? It's not. You like going to the games because you like seeing people that you know. You like seeing number 77 on the ice and 88 on the ice and 86 on the ice. And you know that they're good. And you know that you're going to go and have a great time. It's going to be an incredible experience, starting with Greg Wolf and then going to Sonia Bryson and then the product on the ice. Then after, when you walk out of Amalie Arena, you're going to know that was money well spent. We always speak about the Rays when it comes to the product on the field, right? Are they good? Yeah, they're good. Why don't more people come? But ask yourself, when you go to a Rays game, win or lose, when you walk out of the building, do you say money well spent? The fact that enough people out there don't resoundingly say yes, that's a problem. And that's something that the Rays need to focus on. There's a lot of dead time in baseball, right? They've done a lot when it comes to concessions. They try to make Tropicana Field on the inside look better. Listen, there's been effort there, but it's not resonating with fans and sticking with them. And again, going back to the Four Nations thing, it's great, but is it fleeting? Is it going to resonate with people? Is it going to stick with them? Did they really build new fans? Or is this just something that's going to come and go? Because look no further than basketball. And I know that there's a lot of people that when we're talking about the NBA, and the NBA is getting a bad rap right now when it comes to everything with the NHL and the Four Nations and comparing them to the NHL All-Star Game. When is the last time that basketball players left it all out on the court and it wasn't the playoffs? Think about it. It wasn't too long ago. And people are out there, you're going to say, when you answer this question, you're going to say, when Kobe was playing, when MJ was playing. Think about it. When was the last time that basketball players left it all on the court and it wasn't for the playoffs or the postseason? Anybody got an answer? Here's the answer. the Olympics. The last Olympics that we just saw, France against the United States, Team USA, the red, white, and blue left it all on the court. Why? Why did they do that? Well, first off, you had one of the greatest players, and I'm not going to say in order, but just in order of the reasoning. But Steph Curry never won a gold medal with Team USA before these Olympics in Paris. So him being part of that team with Steve Kerr as the head coach, that was important to him. And I know it was important to LeBron James. I know it was important to Kevin Durant, knowing that this was probably the last time with them at their height of their superpowers can get together and try to win gold. Joel Embiid had multiple options of what country he was going to represent. He picked the United States because that's where his kid is going to grow up. You look at all the different players. You look at how happy guys like Tyrese Halliburton were on the bench. You look at Devin Booker, what he was able to do, right? You look at all these different players that came in. Anthony Edwards. All these guys leaving it all out there for the red, white, and blue. For all the talk about the NBA and how political it becomes and how much it just seems like they're at times like nothing this country does is right. They went out there and they represented their country for the Olympics. Is it for selfish reasons? Is it for really representing the country? Only they can tell you that. But go back to those games. Go back to seeing Victor Wembanyama manning the 5 for France. And look at the back and forth between the French national team and the United States. That was some good basketball. One of my favorite things during the pandemic, and I was really sick, and of course I watched The Office 2 or 3 times, was watching Kevin Durant lead Team USA to a gold medal. Now, KD is a guy, and he's kind of the poster child of this generation of athletes with burner accounts and jumping from team to team and saying things that maybe catch people off guard or maybe not of the most what he says isn't liked, right, or appreciated. There's no denying he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, one of the greatest shooters of all time, just an incredibly gifted athletic force. But what he did in that Olympics, not this past one, but the one before, he took on that leadership role. He took these guys under his wing. And he was like, all right, this is what we're going to do to win. We got to think about things that are bigger than ourselves. That's why Team USA was successful over France. Think about how many people were at that game in attendance on courtside watching that game. Everybody was encapsulated by what was going on. So there is proof of concept when it comes to the NBA. There is proof of concept of like these guys do love the game. These guys can share the basketball. These guys can do things for the greater good. But what, again, was the biggest storyline coming out of the Olympics? It wasn't what we just saw right there from the 4 nations. What was it? Does anybody remember? It was everybody bitching and moaning that Jason Tatum didn't play. That's all it was. That's all anybody took out of it. Nobody remembers the incredible 3 from Steph Curry. I know there's like a documentary coming out. I can't wait to watch that. But sometimes it's not just on the players. It's kind of the media and the black cloud and just all the negativity around basketball. Like, holy smokes, man. I don't feel bad for a guy playing basketball that's making $40 million a year. I'm sorry. You're talking about a kid that was the son of a custodian and a lunch lady. My parents did whatever they could to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. I'm grinding my ass off after getting laid off from a corporate job after 10 years. You think I feel bad for somebody that's getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to playing a game? Not going to happen. I don't ever feel that way towards hockey players because they never make me feel that way. After the 4 nations, it wasn't about like this guy didn't play or, it didn't. And it's a good thing. And you can say all you want about like, oh, Tage Thompson could have played. I hear that very little. Would Tage Thompson have made a difference? USA was 1 goal away from the narrative being completely different today, from it being a much happier day in the United States. So just like I said with Canada, I'll say the same thing with the United States. Don't give me anything about roster construction or coaching. Both of these entities did a really, really good job to make sure that they were the two teams left standing. But when it comes to the NBA, when it comes to these basketball players, how about some gratefulness? How about some happiness? How about some joy? How about some inclusion? You just had an example of the men supporting the women and the women supporting the men, and both of them taking home gold. I think about Asia Wilson and Bam Adebayo being there for each other. That was such a great story. Steph Curry finally winning that gold medal with his coach, Steve Kerr, one of the greatest shooters of all time. And all anybody in the media covering basketball could focus on was why Jason Tatum wasn't playing. Yeah, really. Steve Kerr. Okay, whether you want to make it racial, whether you want to make it prejudice, you want to make it anything. Yeah, okay. Steve Kerr, who's been growing up in basketball around African Americans his whole life, whose three best players on all of his championship teams were black. Yeah, of course he doesn't like Jason Tatum, right? That's kind of some of the BS narrative that we were seeing. Was he playing a white guy over him? No. This fake race baiting BS that happens in sports sometimes is just incredibly debilitating. Because if there is real stories in certain avenues, now people are going to scoff at them. They're not going to take them serious because you look at a situation like that and you think that's the reason why Jason Tatum didn't play. Wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good fit. Could he have found him some time? Maybe. But at the end of the day, they won. Who are you going to play him over? There's other guys out there that were playing better. That team 2 Olympics ago where he played a more prominent role, LeBron wasn't out there, right? Derek White wasn't out there. Think about that kind of stuff, man. So let's be happy. Let's be grateful. That's another thing. There's a lot of grateful people when it comes to the National Hockey League. The NBA, the proof of concept is there. I hope they fix it, man, because, again, I love the NBA. I love basketball. I want to see it flourish. I want to see it do great things. But just like this woe is me and load management and this like my life is so hard attitude is just like it's falling on deaf ears, man. It's not working. One of the things I wanted to mention before we get to our interview at 1:00 with our guy JD Urso is that the New York Yankees have made a big switch. And they are now okaying well-groomed beards. And this is a statement from Yankees owner Hal Steinbrenner. And he said, and I quote, "In recent weeks, I've spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees spanning several eras to elicit their perspectives on our long-standing facial hair and grooming policy, and I appreciate their earnest and varied feedback. These most recent conversations are an extension of ongoing internal dialogue that dates back several years. Ultimately, the final decision rests with me, and after great consideration, we will be amending our expectations to allow our players and uniform personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. It is the appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy." And of course, they get it from George Steinbrenner, who had that military background, and he thought doing this would kind of instill discipline. The rule was codified before the 1976 season, leaving players with a choice of being clean shaving or wearing a mustache and not allowing them to grow hair past their collars. Hal Steinbrenner kept the policy in place after becoming chairman and controlling owner of the franchise. The amended rule does not address the policy on hair length. I mean, listen, I know I'm probably in the minority of this entire thing, but I never really had a problem with it. And people say, you have a beard. Okay. I don't play for the Yankees. I'm not in the Yankees system. I'm not in their organization. It's different. And I like that. I like different. I like tradition. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And if you were going to put on a uniform and play for the most venerable franchise in all of sports, I don't think it was that big of a deal. Talking about robbing players, individuality, and you can do whatever you want. It's not like you have to do it in the offseason. Grow out your beard as long as you want in the offseason. You can't wear it in the military. You don't see a lot of long beards and long hair in the military, do you? They were the only team that did it. I thought it made them stand out. I just thought it made them different. People thought, oh, it's robbing them of their individuality. I thought seeing a team with a bunch of guys that were freshly shaven and guys with mustaches was cool. But I guess not. And nowadays, everybody wants to bitch and moan and complain about every little thing. Like, oh, man, they look at these guys. They're living in the past. Okay. You look in the past, they are successful. You think they don't win because players don't come there? Like, people shave their heads. People shave their faces to join up with the Yankees. Is it that big of a deal? Like, if your job didn't want you to have a beard and you were getting paid really good money to do so, would you be like, nah, I'm going to go somewhere else? Nah, I'm good. I'll shave. I'll shave. If you tell me that I'm going to play for the Yankees and get treated like a king, and all I had to do is shave my face, yeah, I don't see why that's such a big deal. And again, this is coming with somebody that's had facial hair for the last 25 years. But best believe if they're like, hey, you have a chance to play shortstop for the Yankees, I'll run to the barber. I'll shave my face myself. I'll come out there looking like, I don't care. I'll be like Michael Jordan. I'll have the baby face. I'll be bald. Whatever you want. Sign me up. But the fact that people are like freaking out about this, and this really became a thing, and you can hear and see the groundswell over the last couple of weeks where people were talking about it. And it's so funny how people get so bent out of shape about things like this. I can't believe it. This is awful. What's wrong with these guys? Yeah, okay. All the things in the world that people want to worry about. That's the kind of thing. I don't know. Some other news. Yesterday, it was yesterday, the day before. I wanted to mention this too. Zach Martin retiring. This was yesterday at about 5:35, and I wanted to show some love to a Dallas Cowboy, which doesn't happen very often. But I have to do it because anybody that you talk to in the game, around the game, speaks about Zach Martin as one of the best to ever do it. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowl selection in 11 years with the Cowboys. And when you look at it, he was not just a Pro Bowl, because we know the difference between the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro. He was an All-Pro first team 7 times. You're talking about guys tied with Randall McDaniel and John Hanna. The only player with more first team All-Pro selections since he entered the league was Aaron Donald, who had 8. This is a guy, he had, only had 7 accepted holding penalties in his entire career. 7 holding penalties from 2014 till now. And this was a guy that continuously worked on his contract to make sure that other people could stay. And when the Cowboys were at their height, and I say height, regular season height, they were built offensive line, defensive line. And that's the kind of ironic part of the Dallas Cowboys and their lack of success. Not going to the NFC championship game and not going to the Super Bowl since the 90s, since I was a freaking teenager, is that they've tried to build in the trenches. They've gotten the Zach Martins and the Tyron Smiths of the world. They have DeMarcus Lawrence and the Micah Parsons. Like, they understand the need to protect your quarterback, run the football, and to get to the quarterback. So there's just so many differing factors that have happened to Dallas over the years that have prevented them from achieving the ultimate goal. You want to blame Des Bryant, you want to blame the head coaches, you want to blame the quarterback play. I mean, where do they go from here? And now there's people talking about trading a guy like Micah Parsons. You need good players. I mean, if you want to trade a guy and get a king's ransom back, okay, fine, put him out there. But you need guys that are going to be able to rush the passer. And we say that a lot with the Buccaneers. We've had multiple people on, even just this week, speak about the importance of getting an elite pass rusher. Getting a Trey Hendrickson. Are you going to trade for one of those big names? Do you trade for a Myles Garrett? Do you trade for a Trey Hendrickson or a Max Crosby? Or is that too rich for your blood? You don't want to spend the draft or the trade capital and have to pay that guy. Okay. Well, what else can you do? Sign an aging veteran? Do you want a Khalil Mack? Don't be one of those teams. Don't be one of those teams that falls in love with the name. Look at the production. Yeah, 2 years ago, he was a double-digit sack guy. Last year, he looked like a shell of himself, and he's playing on the opposite side of Bosa. You're talking about a team that made the playoffs. So it wasn't like he was on a crappy team. I don't know if I would want to do that. Do you sign a Shaq Barrett type? Like a Joseph Osai from Cincinnati, a guy that maybe with more opportunity will turn into a double-digit sack guy. Again, like we saw with Shaq Barrett, who spent his first couple of years with Denver, but he was behind DeMarcus Ware. He was behind Von Miller and Shane Ray. So he wasn't really getting as many opportunities. He came here, double-digit sack guy, helped the team win a Super Bowl. It doesn't always work out like that, but that's another option. Or do you go into the draft? do you go into the NFL draft and draft a edge rusher at 19 to try to help get to the quarterback? Yes to everything, because the Bucs need help at that one spot, and I can't wait to see how they tackle that. Can't wait to see how these guys tackle the matchup this weekend. And we're talking about our University of Tampa Spartans baseball team, and we're chatting with standout JD Urso. What's going on, brother? How are you?
How we doing, Coach Jay? Good to see you, my man.
Good to see you, my friend. Great article written by the Tampa Bay Times talking about you and Dad, and just like, what does it feel, man? Obviously, growing up, going to UT games as a kid, and then obviously going to Miami last year, and now back with the Spartans. Like, just take me through that whole process of making that decision to come back here and playing for UT again.
Yeah, I think the first thing that really could have kind of stuck out to me was how fast time flies, man. And the journey, we've been on it for so long, since I was a 8-year-old kid trying to get better every day. And, to be able to look in the mirror and understand this is my last season is pretty crazy. And looking at the college journey, to be able to do 5 full years at the University of Tampa, 1 year at the University of Miami, like, you really can't ask for much more than that. And to come back here for my last year, it just feels so right. It feels like being at home. Being able to put on that Spartan uniform that I sat in the stands and rooted for, I don't know, 500, 600 games, it felt like. It's just so awesome. And, what makes me the most proud is to be able to do it with my dad and with his coaching staff that, I basically grew up looking to as my stepdads.
What did you learn most from playing at Miami last year for that one season?
The Division I season is, a bit more on the body with all those midweek games. And I believe the schedule is closer to 56 games. And so one of the big things I learned is like how important it is to have that daily routine and knowing how to get your work in without, putting yourself down in the ground and, working yourself till you're, completely out of gas. But from a competition standpoint, you're facing a lot of guys with power, just mid-90s heaters, some of them upper 90s, and really just throwing the breaking ball as hard as they can. And so those at-bats obviously are tougher in the sense that you got to be ready for some speed. But just being able to go out there every day and compete against somebody who is just as good, if not better than you, it's a big task at hand. If there's one thing that I really took away from that season, from an offensive standpoint, it's really the swing decisions. You got to take swings at the right pitches. Some of those pitchers are so good that when they locate the pitch where they want it, it's I don't like to say unhittable, but it's really hard to get that up and in pitch when they're throwing real hard. And so just to be able to go into an at bat with a good approach and understand where we're trying to get our swings off. So trying to bring that into this last year for me here at the University of Tampa, and to get going on my pitches that I handle.
What was that conversation like with your mom and dad when you were making that decision to leave Miami to come back to UT? Did he bring it up? Did she bring it up? Did you bring it up? Like, how was that line of communication opened?
Well, to be honest with you, I think all of us were kind of just like a little shell-shocked, a little trying to figure everything out. We had a little bit of insight that it was going to be wise to kind of put your name into that portal. And, I've kind of learned to hate it, to be honest with you, because it's such public information.
Right.
Back in the day, a school used to grant a permission to speak, and now you speak with the schools that you're interested in. But this new day and age, that transfer portal is public information, a public database. You're on Twitter pretty quickly, and the phone keeps ringing, and you're trying to decipher, area codes, trying to figure out what school it might be, but you don't know until you answer that phone. And for us, it was just a ton of uncharted territory that we're all trying to figure out together. One of the things I realized quickly was I did want to stay in the state of Florida. I am a little bit of a homebody. I think it took me a little bit to learn that, but it was a blessing to be able to just be 4 hours away. I was able to come catch a midweek game and watch my boys on the midweek. And a couple times they were able to come down and see me. So, it was beautiful. It was chaotic. And, it was a dream come true at the end of the day.
What was the biggest adjustment then coming back to UT? Because obviously being there in Cary last year, watching them win the championship, how do you kind of fit into here, right? Because obviously guys move on, Gates and a bunch of those other guys, EJ Combo, big parts of the team. like, how do you get yourself back in, right? Because now it's like, all right, well, you return a bunch of guys, you return a bunch of infielders too. How does that, adjustment period go where you're going in there? Because if you're in there, some other guys might not be in there. How's that kind of the reassimilation back with the black and red?
Yeah, and that was definitely something that I was thinking about a lot in the summer is, how do you join a team that just, pretty much, I don't want to use the word walked, but like, they won that national championship in decisive, factor. They all season long, I believe they began on a 17-game win streak, one of the most dominant years I've ever watched the University of Tampa play baseball. So you're coming into the new year understanding that, there's some leaders that have established themselves, and you got to go in like, it is your first year. The 4 years before that, kind of throw them out the window, and you're joining a team that just had the most successful year in recent memory. And so the first couple months, you try to figure out where exactly you belong, who's the loudest voice in the room that everyone's following. And, once the baseball starts to get played, I think that's when everything kind of smooths itself out and everything on the field kind of establishes itself naturally. You start to figure out who's the player that plays with a lot of energy, who's more of your silent assassin that just, like our Friday guy, Skylar Gonzalez, for example, one of the better pitchers in the country. And, he's a poker player. He doesn't frown. He doesn't smile. He goes and gets his out, and he's on to the next hitter. And so you're just kind of navigating the new team, figuring out your new teammates and how you're going to get the most out of every single one of them. Because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to win a championship is, with that 35-man roster or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like when you look at some of the guys on the roster, the one thing I always loved about the way that your dad puts the team together is that there are a lot of Tampa guys on these teams over the last couple of years. And, you look at some of the last names, when you think of baseball, you think of Urso, you think of Russo, you think of Saladino. Those are three names that are synonymous with baseball here in the Tampa Bay area. And the fact that the three of you guys are playing together on this team this year, I mean, how cool is that to know that you're playing with Cole and Nico, and not just that you're playing with those guys, but, all three of those big time baseball families are together supporting the Spartans this year.
Yeah, it really is special. I remember my little brother Preston actually played with Cole on a team called the Tampa Blades. They were probably like 8U at the time, so I was probably 10. And just being able to watch like a left-handed hitter with some power at 8 years old was like, man, this Cole kid's going to be for real. And then obviously Nico, every team in Tampa talks about winning a state championship and the Saladino tournament. And so that name in Tampa, everybody knows, and, it's put up there like it's royalty, which it is. But the one thing that my dad always preaches, and, just a program as a whole, is we want players who want to be here. I think that's the coolest thing is, they want to be here. This is our home. This is where we grew up. When the lights turn on and we look at that Tampa downtown, backdrop, it's like, this is our place. We feel like, it's our city to run at night. It's pretty fun. You go out there with three kids who are truly born and raised in Tampa. You got a little bit of that chip on your shoulder. And we have, I bet we probably have close to 12 guys that played in the Saladino tournament. So that Tampa background is definitely strong once again.
What is your favorite part about playing for your dad?
Man, there's my favorite part of it is that he also played here. He had his own playing career, which was extremely successful. And now I get to go out there and, we 20 years later, we're competing against each other. A few years back, I was able to break his doubles record. He had 23. I passed him by, and I made sure to let him know immediately, like, that was a nice season you had out there in 1992, man. It's too bad your name just got bumped down one on the record books, but it's awesome. And, one thing that I really love about our program is after the wins, we have our handshake line, and then you see, the four coaches lined up, and they want their knuckles. And at the end of the game, well, we get our W. That's our way of saying, tonight the job's done. The job's complete tonight. And just everybody celebrating as one. That's always a special moment for me after a big win.
Take us through the season so far, JD. What have you learned about this team? There's some good successes early on. We'll get to this weekend here in a bit. But, man, what have you liked about your team's success so far?
The season started with more adversity than it usually does. the Diego Pavia ruling, the Vanderbilt QB, actually had a bit of impact on our team, as we had a bunch of guys that were in that little bubble of, are you D2 eligible only? Can you play D1? So we actually lost 2 players right before the season started. And, the locker room kind of had to stabilize a little bit, look around like, man, there goes 2 big pieces of the puzzle, but hey, we got more. And so we went out there on opening night and we actually lost the guy that was supposed to hit 4th for us that night, like hours before the game. And, we look at each other and someone step up. And surely that's what happened. We got off to a great start opening weekend with a big time sweep over a regional opponent. And then the last 2 weekends for us have been, a little bit shy of our goal. We went and took 2 out of 3 the last 2 weekends, and that gets us to 7-2. But that's how big of the expectations are at the University of Tampa. Is that 7-2 start just feels like we're out the gate, we're doing what we're supposed to do, but we're here to dominate and win a national championship, and we definitely have our best ball ahead of us. I think 9 games in offensively, we should be accomplishing more. We're doing our job, but we got some guys that are capable of doing big things at the plate. And so I look forward to us being able to, kind of settle in as you get going. Once you get past game 10, you pretty much are in that rhythm of midseason form. And so that's what I'm the most excited about is, we got a good start at 7-2, but I could not feel more confident that our best ball is ahead of us.
One thing I talked to your dad about before the season is that this is one of the deeper teams. And I know you said it was challenged, having lost some of those guys, but just talk about the internal competition there, right? Going up against guys, knowing that like, hey, if I don't do my job, there's a guy chomping at the bit on the bench, ready to kind of take my spot. No, nothing's given there at UT.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously last year they were able to bring home that 9th national championship. And you lose some big keys, but obviously EJ Cumbo is huge, and JP Gates, the MVP of the national championship. And then here comes 12 more Division I transfers coming in to join a team that just dominated. And so in the fall you start to try to do some math in your head, like who's going to play where. But at the end of the day, everybody's competing every day. Every new lineup is what Hefe feels like is the best lineup for that night. And we got, 16 position players in the mix that all bring different aspects to the table. You got Maddox King, who is the best center fielder I've ever played with or against. Like I've seen some guys really go get the baseball in center field. The kid is special. Jordan Williams joins us from Florida State. His dad's obviously a big name in Tampa, Reggie Williams.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a kid steal bases like this. Last Friday night, he actually tied the single game stolen base record with 5,
right?
And it should have been 6. He took third base and got it taken away from him with a bad call, in my opinion, but just a unique skill set that you don't see every day. I mean, when you got a player who could steal 5 bags in one night, it's special. And, Cole Russo too, cannot speak highly enough about the energy he brings to the table. He's got probably one of the more unique nicknames I've ever heard of. We call him Chicken Bone. And he's got his double celebration, which is, nicknamed the Chicken Bone. He does the little thigh clap, whatever you want to call it. And, just a pure hitter, man, who's able to stay gap to gap. He can beat you to left center. And if he pulls that ball in the air, he's got 3 home runs on the early season with tons of doubles. He's a guy that plays with energy, who's bringing us some slug to the plate. And like we were talking about earlier, a guy that this means the world to. He goes out there every night. You can see the Russo family sitting in the stands, and, it's just been special. But deep is an understatement. We got so many talented players, 2 catchers who are both studs. We got some hitters that, games on the line, we feel so confident in pinch hitting this guy versus the lefty, this guy versus the righty. It's like we got a little professional lineup at a NCAA D2 school. It's pretty special.
What's the focus this weekend? You're facing Lynn, obviously. You play these guys for years. You've watched your dad. I mean, this is a heck of a matchup on the coaching side as well. You just know, that it's a classic red versus blue matchup, man, against Lynn starting tonight at 6 p.m.
Absolutely. And conference play is always extremely important. We talk about our goals at the beginning of the season, and the first step is winning your conference. And so these conference games mean the world to us. And winning that conference gets us that automatic qualifier into playoffs. And Lynn is one of 4 schools in our conference that has won a national championship. Us, Florida Southern, Lynn, and Nova, I believe. And so they're a team that is dangerous. Any given weekend, they come out and they get hot. They're a pretty dangerous team. 2 out of their 9 starters have already played professional baseball. So I look forward to seeing what they bring to the table. But, with the team that we have, we all in our locker room really feel like it's all about us just putting together at-bats and playing our style of baseball, a clean, offensive game that we're going to go out there and get our hits, score our runs, and defense and pitching is going to win us that game late. And so going into this weekend, we look to get off to a good start in conference play. Obviously, got to get that series. And at home, winning that series sometimes isn't decisive enough later in those years when the committees get together. So got to go get Friday and get game 1 tomorrow and, see what the series brings. And, we'd like to get back going on those sweeps. That's what we're all about.
JD, before I let you go, people ask me about this, but I want to get your opinion. What's the secret sauce to UT's success over the years, other than chairs that popped down at the last second?
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why.
You're good. So what's the secret sauce when people say, what makes UT so good? Because this isn't something where it's just like, oh, you got to run a good players, right? Oh, yeah, you just had these guys, and yeah, an EJ combo. Like, this team is good before EJ, and it'll probably be good after EJ. So when people ask you, what is that secret recipe, that secret sauce to the success of UT baseball?
Yeah, and obviously they talk a ton about family, but it's tough to fully understand what that means until you're actually in the program. And, from a hitter standpoint, there's a lot of places that, you go 0 for 8, back-to-back 0-fers in a row, and the communication starts to get a little uncomfortable for people. These certain coaches, add pressure and they start to make people press.
Right.
The communication at this school is top notch, and it's something where they look at every player they have and they start to understand you as a person and understand, what makes you tick, what gets you fired up, what's your keys for success. And it's so personalized that every player feels so comfortable here and they feel like they're in that environment, like they're hitting the cage with their dad, and lucky for me, I actually get to do that every day. But that environment is where you get the most out of people. And, being able to have a hitting guy like Jose, who tends to be on the simple side, when there's a big slump in front of you and it's like, man, my hands aren't working, my legs aren't where I want to be. It's so hard to get out of that. But when you get back to, the basics, hey, let's get the ball in the barrel, let's swing at a strike, let's try to hit something hard in the big part of the field. You tend to get hitters to free up their mind. And I know you as a baseball coach, you know that more than anybody. Sometimes it's not the technical answer that is sometimes the right answer. It's getting that smile back on that kid's face and getting him to go out there and play with joy. And that's what they do so well here is they not only make you feel like you're part of the family, but the everyday actions show that you actually are part of the family. And that's why I feel like we get the most out of almost everybody that comes through this program. And, there's a lot of really, really talented players sometimes that don't have great seasons, and they get to an environment that lets them be themselves. And that's where you see their true potential. And I think that happens a lot here.
1,000%. I know you guys are in action tonight at 6 p.m. over there at the Birdcage, and then a double dip tomorrow at 1 and 4. JD Urso, infielder for our University of Tampa Spartans. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me. Go get ready for the game. I'm going to do my best to be there tonight. Everybody bundle up if you're going to go out there because it's going to be a cold one. Appreciate you, my man. Give my love to everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Will do. Thank you, Coach Jay.
You got it, pal. The one and only JD Urso. You hear it? You heard it right there. We've had Joe on the program. We have JD on the program here. How special is that to be able to play for your dad? And I know going into and I asked Joe this myself, like, incorporating your son back into it. He was just like, he's going to have to earn his spot just like everybody else. And I think that goes a long way. And here's the thing. We've seen this in sports, right? We've seen it in sports where a dad coaches his son. And I tell you what, if there's any kind of just favoritism or daddy ball being played, it is exposed quickly. And you don't get that with Joe. You don't get that with UT. That's just not the way it goes. Joe is not going to compromise his entire program for elevating his son, even though he loves them more than anything, of course, but he's not going to sacrifice all the work that he and Sam and Jose and the whole crew over there put into building this culture and building this dynamic of success for selfish reasons. It has to be for the good of the team. That's exactly what he's done. And that's why they're so good year after year after year. That's why JD can leave and then come back. But he's come right in the middle of the lineup, right there in the middle of the infield. He's a true leader. So I love watching JD play. I'm going to do my best to be able to get out there tonight, and I hope a lot of people can go out there too. Yeah, it's important to be able to support local, right? You hear me say that a lot. Support local. And that doesn't just stop with our local media. That goes to our local teams. It's supporting UT. It's supporting USF, Rays, TC, Jesuit, Sun, not Manchester United, the Bucks, the Rowdies, the Lightning, Rays, everybody, right? If you've never been to a game at the Birdcage, I guarantee you it is an experience that you will not forget. And you want to go, as much as it is really cool to go during the day, you want to go at night. Go at night. So if you have an opportunity to get there tonight. Go watch the game. It is a ton of fun to be able to go out there and support our Tampa Spartans. Cannot wait. So baseball is back. Baseball is upon us. The Rays and the Yankees, they're undergoing some action right now there at Steinbrenner Field. Baseball all around. Oh, this is bad news. Per Bloomberg, Hooters is preparing for bankruptcy. Oh, no. What does that mean for our place there on Gulf to Bay? Spent a lot of time there over the years. Oh, that sucks, man. Oh, well. All right, what else do we see? I want to give you guys an update before Greg Linnelli joins us at 1:30 to talk all things hockey. Aaron Boone says, I think it was time for this, talking about the facial hair policy. Hey, whatever you think is best. Right now, we are in the bottom of the first. The Yankees are still the home team. They have runners on the corners as we speak. Bellinger on first, Jason Dominguez on third. A walk from the Martian to start it off, and then a single by Bellinger. Goldschmidt up right now. So, yeah, we'll keep you abreast of that situation as the game goes on, because it's really cool to be able to see baseball once again outside. And again, it's a little nippy out there. What's the weather going to be like tonight? Let's look it up now while we have you on the program. Because if you're going to go out to UT, you better bundle up. 60 to a low of 39. Wow, it is going to get down there. So by tonight, game starts at 6, sunset at 6:25. By 9 o'clock, it's going to be 52. So by 11 o'clock tonight, you're in the upper 40s. It's going to be a cold one tonight. I think a little bit warmer. Yeah, it's going to be in the 40s and 50s, the lows over the next couple weeks. And it's so crazy. Last week, you look at the weather, you're like, how the heck are they going to play hockey in weather like this? And then you have a game like today, you're like, oh, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. I really hope that's not a hindrance. I really, and with everything that happens with Rob Higgins and the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, they do so many good things. They do well by so many people. You have to think that the good Lord's going to look down and be like, we're going to give you good weather for the outdoor game next year. I really, really hope that is the case. What's going on with USF this weekend? A ton of games. Make sure you get on out there and support our Bulls, UTSA, and there's some tennis going on right now. Got some softball today, 4 o'clock. For softball against Michigan, once again, 4 o'clock. Baseball at Georgia Southern. They moved that game up because it's going to be a cold one. Softball plays Wisconsin at 6:30. So Michigan, Wisconsin, a Big Ten matchup for USF. And then softball, I'll be on the call tomorrow at 1:30 against Louisville. So make sure you head out to there. Some really, really good action. What else do we have tomorrow? Baseball at 2 o'clock, softball at 1:30, softball also at 8:30, Kent State, and then women's basketball against Memphis at 7 o'clock. That should be a good one. Coach Jose Fernandez and the Bulls are on fire right now. Sunday, men's basketball at noon against North Texas. We got some lacrosse also at noon against Towson, and then the game, of course, baseball 1 o'clock, softball against Troy at 2 p.m., Lightning action on Sunday night at 6 p.m. So really, really good stuff we got going on this weekend when it comes to Tampa Bay sports. Get on out there and support our teams. Some breaking news in the NFL. The Saints are hiring former Chargers coach Brandon Staley as their defensive coordinator for Coach Kellen Moore. Brandon Staley, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about one of the worst single years of being a head coach in the National Football League. He had it there with the Chargers. They could not get rid of that guy fast enough. And, when you look at, certain people get fired, certain people get hired. Geez, what more do you got to say? He just did not do the job. And if you don't even get one full year to try to get the team out of it, that's why I don't think you have to wait. If you see a guy's not the answer, I like it. Get rid of it, move on, find the guy that you think is best. Some people want to say, you need to give him time. I don't think you have to. You have to be able to see something. You have to see some kind of growth, some kind of progress. And if you don't get that in 1 year, hell, it may not even take a year. But if you see relationships aren't being built, that's the big thing when it comes to sports. When you talk so much about, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you talk about progress, and it's not always about wins and losses. At the end of the day, it does come down to wins and losses. But I think in a year, even less than a year, it doesn't take much time. If you see that a good relationship is being fostered, if you see a good foundation is being built, if you say hey, man, I see the progress there. Maybe it's not translating on the field where you're directly and imminently seeing wins and losses. But if you're seeing a guy play better, if you see a guy happier, if you just see all right, I can gauge where I'm going from here. And if you just give him more time, good things are going to happen. But if you don't see any of that, if you just see the same old thing over and over and over again, and the things that these coaches and leaders are saying, and the way that they're going about their business just continuously rubs you the wrong way. My God. Shout out to David Terry, well-smoking young man. If he doesn't make it in baseball, he could do radio. You got that right, buddy. Richie P, bro, you are so down with the Bay. You got that right. Thanks for that. Feels like you grew up here. Did you ever go up to Tampa, skate on Armenia back in the day, roller skating to Stevie P? No, I didn't. I actually used to skate back home in New York at Bayshore Roller Rink every Friday night. They knocked it down and put a Lucille Roberts or a Bally's Fitness, which still to this day hurts my soul. And it was cool because when we skated back in the day, they used to have it that, all right, it's backwards skate time. And when it was backwards skate time, all of our buddies that we played hockey with were able to go out there. And, the girls thought we were cool because we skate backwards. I'm sure you talk about the other day about how crazy was that men's basketball win the other day. Hell of a comeback. You got that right, man. My goodness. Second largest comeback in team history. And shout out to the Bayern way, MSM. But I'm with you, Richie. To watch what that Bulls team could do on the road at UTSA, I've been speaking a lot to USF, and I've been going to a lot of basketball games this year and just speaking to different people around the entire program. And this has been rough. I don't want to say rough. It's been tough. Because just think about it. You lose a guy like Amir Abdur-Rahim, who not only was such a great coach, but just a leader, man. This was a second father figure to a lot of these guys. And I was speaking to somebody the other day about the guys that transferred, talking about Selton Miguel, talking about Kason Pryor, and talking about Chris Youngblood. And the conversations, and I'm not privy or privileged to know all of the in-depth conversations, but just from hearing from multiple people what Amir would say to these kids about trying to advance their careers and go get that bag, go get money that is life-changing and money that you've never seen before, money that can help your family. He was in full support because he knew that it went farther than those kids playing at USF. It meant more than just being their basketball coach. It meant being their mentor. It meant being their leader. It meant being that father figure. So he's sorely missed. He is. And losing him at the time that they did is something that they're still dealing with right now. And talking to Coach Ben Fletcher and the way that he's had to come in here and, you do things your way, but you don't want to mess it up too much because these guys came to play for Amir, right? Just think about that. As much as we talk about the players and having to deal with that stuff, which is just, think about it. Those kids, late teens, early 20s, having to deal with a loss at this as tragic as this. And then the adults too, having to compartmentalize their feelings and being there for these kids and having to rationalize why something like this happened. Good thing they weren't surprised because they knew what he was dealing with. It doesn't make it any easier, though. It doesn't make up for that loss. And it just sucks that they had to deal with that. And then, they have to go out there and play basketball. And the win they had the other night against UTSA, showing that heart, showing that grit, I mean, good for them. Our heart goes out to everybody that supports the green and gold. All right, let's bring him in. We finished the show with the ultimate closer, Lightning Radio Network host, Otter PR, Greg Linnelli, 2 N's, 2 L's. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
What's going on?
How was Lightning Power Lunch today?
It was good. We, as you can imagine, recapping Four Nations tournament and a lot of people talking about the impact it may have midterm, long-term for hockey. I think that's an interesting takeaway from kind of a manufactured tournament. You know, the league kind of put it together.
I'm glad you said that because you and I have had this conversation. I mentioned before on the show. You were probably, out of all the people I know, one of the more less optimistic, or just like kind of a why are we doing this right now? I don't want to say if has your opinion changed about it, but did it make a more profound impact than you initially thought?
I don't think so.
No.
You know, I think it was going to be intense. I think you appreciated the hockey and the intensity. I think you and I had these conversations off the air. How can you have best on best when a lot of the best players weren't participating in this tournament from certain countries, and most notably Russia? So I think it was a good way for hockey to be in the spotlight by itself with all the other major sports either not playing or having a break.
That worked out well, huh? The timing.
It did. And, you know, I think there's something to be said for rooting for your country regardless of when that happens.
Right.
The question I always have is, was this just a sporting event that people tuned into? Or can you generate buzz? And I use the analogy, Jay. It's kind of like when a company does Facebook ads and you want to get the name out there. But the biggest thing, the reason why you do something like that is to get the conversion.
Right.
Somebody to click through and purchase the product. Are you going to have the average fan check in and say, I'm sold. This is what I want to watch? The league did their part and gave you a platform to see how hockey is played best on best. But what does it mean for the sport moving forward? I just think it was a sporting event to watch. Nothing more, nothing less. But there may be some people who disagree and think it's bigger than that.
Yeah, and I think that's the hope, right? The hope is that you do get some
it's
people. I made the analogy of Tiger King. I mean, look at Tiger King when it came out on Netflix, Joe Exotic and all these things. Was it really that invigorating of a documentary? Yeah. No, it was the only thing that came out at the beginning of the pandemic.
Sure.
Everything else shut down, and that was the number one, and that was the thing that everybody watched because there was nothing else on. So the timing was impeccable, right? But then when they did like the follow up and they did other things, people didn't really care. People didn't even know. But that's the point because there was other things to consume. So I'm with you. I'm very interested to see. I think the timing of this was huge.
Do you think it will though? I think that's I don't think it will.
I'm hopeful. I'm probably more hopeful than certain. Hopeful than than certain, because the one thing that about sports, which is great, and I think a sport is doing well, is when you get the diehards with the casuals. How do you bring in the casuals? How do you get them to even? It's not always about conversion. I know you just said conversion, but I think it's not always about the conversion, or it's not all about the conversion, because what you do want is, I compared it to boxing or MMA, where you may not have been a boxing fan, but in the late 80s or the early 90s, if Mike Tyson was fighting, if somebody says, hey, you want to go watch the Tyson fight? You're like, yeah, sure. Why not? Right. Same thing with MMA. Like, oh, wow, Ronda Rousey's fighting. I'm not a big MMA person. I don't like it, but if she's fighting, I'll go to a party and watch it. I'll go to a restaurant and watch
Usain Bolt.
Right. Yeah. Usain Bolt. Like there's certain Michael Phelps, right?
But those are individuals.
Right.
I think there's difference with a team when it's the country than it is one. I mean, even basketball, it's a team element, but it's a little bit more individual because you could say, I like Michael Jordan.
Right.
I'm going to follow that guy. Hockey,
well, you're also going to see him, and at a 48 minutes, you'll see him, 90%.
48 minutes,
right? Yeah, pretty even 100% of the time, right? For hockey, where sometimes it's tougher to follow those guys along.
It's tough.
I think it's a start But the one thing that they need to make sure that they do is continue to build the individual stars, because that's what brings people in, right? The Kachucks being a name, and it's a unique name, is going to get people. Like if the Panthers are on the road playing a team and you're in America, people are saying, oh, go see the Kachucks. Like every single team should be doing that. Come see the Utah Hockey Club face Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers, right? Because that's, to me, the one name that you look at that has made an impression on people in the States.
So let me ask you this, because I think this may answer your question, and I don't disagree with you on that. We're coming to the end of one of the greatest rivalries of all time, potentially, Ovechkin and Crosby.
Right.
Do you think the league did enough to promote generational all-time greats?
Not at all.
And
but
so
I
if they
think
can't do it then, who are like, okay,
but it was
Connor
different
McDavid.
though. It's different though, Greg, because the problem is they didn't have the TV deal to coincide with that. So
Sure.
if they would have had ESPN in the beginning of that deal to go
You
with
think that would have made a difference?
I think it would have helped.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have helped enough, but it definitely would have helped, because when you're on the worldwide leader, right? And Crosby and Ovechkin are coming around at the same time.
Sure.
You also need media members too. So like another thing that I think really helped was what PK Subban did this week. PK Subban went on morning television that is consistently all NFL, all NBA, all Lakers, all Cowboys, all the time. And he went on twice and took NBA and the product to the woodshed, while former NBA players and people that cover the game just sat there in stunned silence, because they knew why. He was telling the truth. He knew that what he was saying, they knew what he was saying.
What did he say?
About,
I didn't even
well,
see
he
it.
was
What did he
talking
say?
about hockey
how bad
players
the NBA is?
Well, he's just talking about hockey players don't do load management. Hockey players, they leave it all out there. They max out. And everybody wants to talk about, oh, this guy and that guy, and oh, he's so great. He said, I don't want to hear these basketball players as all-time greats when they're not going all out. They're not maxing out. I saw a stat today. In the three-peat for Jordan, when they won in 96, 97, and 98, Greg, he played in all 310 regular season games and every single playoff game.
Incredible.
Right? And this is a guy that was in his mid-30s at the time. He was the greatest player alive. If he would have took a game off, nobody would have said anything. Well, maybe they would have. But now with load management and guys bitching and moaning and complaining about how much money they're making, when you have guys that are sitting at the end of the bench making $8 million. And if you did that in the NHL, you'd be a top 30 player probably, right? So there was just a lot that went into it. And when you get a chance, man, look it up, because it's really eye-opening what he said about the product. And I think those are the things that makes waves. Because I think media partners have it as well. Like having former players talk about the product inside the NBA.
Yeah.
On TNT with Shaq, Kenny, and Charles Barkley and the great Ernie Johnson.
Sure.
It's one of the best things about the sport. It really is. I know people that tune in to Inside the NBA.
Do you think it's better than the sport? The actual analysis, that show, people know it more than who are the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference for your casual observer.
I mean, at this time, it's the fact that you can't answer that question right away is a problem for the NBA.
I also think in the NHL, you probably need the right people promoting the game.
Yeah,
and talking about it in a way like. So the Spit and Chicklets podcast, right? I mean, that gets a lot of notoriety. Mm-hmm. Is that the best vehicle to be promoting the game? In your opinion,
I've never thought so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think Paul Bissonnette is the. Listen, he's a guy he's very brash. I love what he did for those bullies in Arizona that were messing with the restaurant people. Yeah. Like, I tip my hat to that. I thought that was one of the coolest things you're going to see.
Yeah.
But like, you can tell it bothers some of the guys on the Lightning over the years.
Sure.
Like just the things like crapping on American hockey. Like, what is he doing to grow the game?
That's what I mean.
If you're feeding that Barstool audience, then that's fine. But is the Barstool audience the audience that's going to help grow the game? Because they've had the opportunity the last couple of years. He's the mainstay on TNT. But I don't want to hear a guy like that tell me about scoring in front of the net when you have Wayne Gretzky on the panel, right? I don't want to hear about that guy talk about postseason runs when you have Henrik Lundqvist on the panel. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it kind of falls on deaf ears when you have an ESPN crew of Steve Levy, who's been your hockey guy from back in the 90s, right? You have Mark Messier, one of the greatest players of all time, and PK Subban, who is a guy that is like, he's loved around the league, a Canadian guy. He's got flash and dash. Sure. He was a fantastic player in his day. He's not afraid to say, even those two guys go at it. But I like the ESPN crew because I think it gives them credibility and they also have fun. but it's like it's on the way. It's on the precipice of doing that. But they also don't have. They need that big personality, but big personality with cachet. It's great that Biz has a great personality. Don't get me wrong, but Shaq
Nobody knows who he is. But nobody knows who he
was. Like,
nobody knows
you
who he
need to
is.
follow Shaq. Like, you followed Shaq. He went to LSU, first overall pick, Magic, Lakers, Heat, Suns, Celtics. Like, everybody knows where he played, and he's amazing. He's everywhere. Same thing with Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer, round amount of rebound, dream team, right? Kenny Smith, New York City legend, went to North Carolina, 2-time champion with the Rockets in the 90s. Like, there's credibility there. So that's what they had ingrained. And then Ernie Johnson with a Hall of Fame broadcaster. So who is that analogy, right? Who are those guys for the NHL? Because even as much as I love Messier, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't him. He doesn't have like the most gregarious, like
he's not charismatic,
crazy personality. But the things that he says would go a long way in a different environment, I think, because he could be the serious voice, right? He could be that guy going, well, I won 6 cups, right? I think it'd be a little bit different there, but you need these larger than life personalities. I just don't know. Think of anybody.
I don't know if they're there. That's the thing.
But that goes back to your question, though. Your original question.
Yeah.
Is Ovechkin and Crosby, either one of those guys, larger than life personalities?
I think
we didn't see that though until he won the cup, right? When he won the cup, then he's naked in the fountain and everything like that. But even outside of that, I don't know if he's the most, because Crosby certainly isn't, right? Crosby's not that guy, and he was the ultimate winner. So the one thing that for many years before Washington won the cup is Crosby had the team success, right? Winning those cups with Malkin and Letang and all of those guys, but he was never a guy that was a great quote. He was never a guy that you were like, put the microphone in his hands, walk away for 10 minutes, you're going to get gold. And unfortunately, Connor McDavid's not like that. Austin Matthews isn't like that. I don't think
most hockey players are, though. And I think that's the difference. And here's
different guys.
2 guys that come to mind. If we can rewind and get Phil Esposito when he was 40 or 50, could you imagine him on a panel?
Right.
Speaking his mind? I think he would have the cachet, and he would have the personality. Don Cherry.
Yeah.
I mean, those are guys who had opinions that at least you might have tuned in to a broadcast with Don Cherry. What did he have to say? You don't have enough of that today. I think a lot of it is just the nature of how hockey players go about their business. It's not a lot of, I don't want to say me, but if you want to go that route.
No, you're right. It's a very deferential.
Say that.
Hockey players are very deferential.
Yes.
You'll ask them about themselves and Vondrei Vasilevsky and Nikita Kucherov are those 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
They don't like talking about themselves, and Kuch doesn't like talking at all.
They don't like, period.
But Vazzy is much more, he's really come out and done a lot more. But we saw it with Stammer, we saw it with Hetty. Like, they're the same way. Like, it's about the team, and I think that's what endears a lot of people to hockey players. But does that come at the cost of entertainment? I think it does.
Hockey's a tough sport to get behind because of to your point, your best players are playing 15 minutes, 18 minutes a night. I think it's such a team game. It's hard to follow for a lot of people. That's why I think the Olympics and the playoff hockey is so endearing to many people, because of the intensity that comes with it. To ask somebody to, maybe buy in who's an average fan for an 82 game season, that may be a tough ask. I think what you're hoping for, Jay, in something like this is that somebody who is in Carolina, or somebody who is your average fan somewhere that has a team, is that maybe they take this experience that they watched and said, you know what, I'm going to go follow my local team now, because that was pretty cool. And maybe go to a few games, because that's really where I think you can embrace hockey at its best.
Yeah, just get a couple more here, a couple more there, a couple people buying.
Keep growing it.
Yeah, just keep growing it little by little. Plant those seeds. Before we talk some Lightning hockey, I want to ask you about Mike Lang, who passed away. I know you being a Pens guy. This guy, when you saw him up in the press box, everybody was they spoke to him with such reverence. They waited to speak to him. And unfortunately, he was lost. But, man, what an impact that he had on the game.
It's cliche, and you're hearing about it over the last couple of days of not only what a great broadcaster he was, but what a great guy he was, that he took time to talk to a lot of broadcasters and pull them aside and give them encouragement, or give them some structured criticism on ways they can make themselves better. and everybody had a great Mike Lang story. So I think it speaks to how good of a person he was. And then what I said on the show the other day with Mish, from a play-by-play perspective, if you're listening to guys like that, you got to keep in mind that Mike Lang was the superstar before Mario Lemieux came on.
Yeah.
A lot of people would tune into games just to hear Mike Lang call a game. That's how big he was. And in Pittsburgh, you had, the Bob Princes who did baseball, Bill Hillgrove who's still doing football right now, Mike Lang. You had a lot of icons, Myron Cope, who you identified the team with them. But I think where the team was before Mario, it was Mike Lang, which is unusual as a broadcaster for a franchise. But the way he called a game and how he was able to let you feel like you knew exactly what was happening. The Lightning are pushing. He could depict that. The Penguin, Mario Lemieux on a breakaway. You felt the turn and the tide of a game changing sometimes because of the way he called. I think every great broadcaster, that's their quality. They're
Theater
able to
of the
let
mind.
you know. Yeah. Can kind of
Great
let you
theater
know
of the
what's happening. And he did that at a very high level. So what more can you say? I mean, just it's a legend, and they don't come around all that often. Hall of Famer. And, just a great guy all the way around.
Yeah, Foster Hewitt Award winner, same award that the great Dave Mishkin won. So, I mean, you're amongst great company for sure. Lightning getting back in action. It's going to be so crazy. I think the NHL did a big disservice to teams like Detroit and Minnesota that play tomorrow at 12:30, right? Figure Matthew Boldy and Dylan Larkin playing on the same line last night there in Boston in overtime, and now they got to go play each other at 12:30. It's just wild to me. But where is your eyes, where is your focus going to be on specifically when it comes to the Lightning being back in action on Sunday at 6 p.m.?
I think first and foremost, the guys who did play, do the Lightning get a boost, or does it drain those guys a little bit coming out of the gate playing a tournament like that emotionally? You could make a case it allowed them to stay sharp, and because of that, maybe the Lightning can build off of the tournament that all the Lightning players had. By all indications, a very good tournament.
Right.
Or is it something that they're off a emotional low because they've just competed in such a high intense environment? I think that's first and foremost. I want to see them how they react coming out of the gate. The guys who didn't play, how is Vasti? How is Kucherov looking? Those are two really big pieces to the Lightning and what they want to accomplish. They're rested. That could speak very well to the Lightning moving forward. Mish pointed out today on the show, and it's a good one. The heavy lifting in terms of travel is done for the Lightning. They have, I think, one more decent trip, and after that, it's pretty normal scheduling. So are the Lightning able to take advantage of that? And then I think what I'm going to be watching the most will be the trade deadline. Is Julien Brisebois going to work his magic and do something to help this team continue their push? Because I think they're playing some pretty good hockey here of late. We'll see what the break allows and if they're able to get back into the swing of things. But what moves can Julien make to give this team really everything they need to represent the East in the Stanley Cup Final, knowing that the East, I think, is pretty wide open?
It is. What do you think about J.J. Moser coming back? Do you think he gets right back in there next to Hedman, or do you? Because Radish has done. I feel like Radish has raised his level.
I like Radish.
Yeah.
I think
who's
Moser
the odd
goes
man
back.
out? You think Moser goes back?
I think Moser goes back with Hedman. I mean, I think. Look, could you make a case that you could put Moser on your third pair, and really make your decor deep, having a Hedman and a McDonough and a Moser, kind of like they had with the Hedman, the McDonough, and the Sergachev, when things are rolling. I think Moser probably goes back with Hedman. I mean, you're going to have McDonough and Chernak. I think it's hard to keep Lilleberg out of the lineup. I think you want that young guy in there, right, playing as much as he can. And I don't know if they go 7. Maybe. Is this year they stay 7 and avoid those tough decisions on the back end, Jay? I don't know. But I will tell you this. I've said it on my show. I think if they want to get a decent piece of the trade deadline, one of those defensemen may have to go. May have to go.
No, I think that's without a doubt. Because I think you look at Max Crozier. I mean, he's an NHL defenseman.
He is.
I really do. And the fact that he's on this team, There's a lot of other teams that he would be on, and he would be in their top
He'd be in the
4
mix.
probably. He'd be right in the mix there. So, yeah, I think you do have to move a piece there. I think you do. You find a way to bring a guy in, and do you trade 2 guys to bring in another defenseman? Do you trade 1 guy to bring in a middle 6 forward? But I feel like this team is close, but they got to make the right moves like Julian did when he brought in Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow. Because if he does that and he brings in 2 guys for that third line, and then let's say you bring Geeky back up, and let's say Geeky settles in with Cirelli and Hagel, and then those 2 guys seem to mesh with let's say a Gonsalves, and then your fourth line is we know Gergensons and Glendening, and then somebody, whether it's a Chafee or Asimon or something like that on the fourth line, give you some energy. I don't think there's any issue with that, but you got to get that 1 guy, I think, in that middle 6 at the very least that's going to come in and be able to make a difference.
I think a lot of people maybe are starting to feel that way. I think it's Gonsalves, to his credit, I think they were hoping he would have performed like this earlier when he got called up.
Right.
And it may have alleviated the potential need to address what we just discussed.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he has done is he's put himself in the conversation to be in the lineup, even if they go out and get somebody. But I think they go out and get somebody.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's.
I think that's part of it. I think you have to if you're
I think
serious
you have
about
to.
competing.
I think you have to too. I think you got some cap room. There's no reason why he's doing all this stuff for cap room for no reason, right? Sending these guys down, not having them up. I want to get your opinion on Isaac Howard, because that's another thing. I think they have to address it in 2 ways. I think they have to bring Isaac Howard up when he's done, because you don't want to wait until next year and then have him go to anywhere he wants to go. He's that good. And he's that good. You're talking about an elite college player.
Yeah.
Bring him in. You're not expecting him to come in on the first line and play with Point and Kucherov. But if that's a guy that can score you 5 goals down the stretch.
So you would put him on the big club?
Yeah, right away.
Right away?
Right away. There's no reason to wait. I mean, there's guys in the past. I mean, it's one thing if he's a good player. Greg, he's arguably the best player in college hockey, right? I mean, you look at his skill. I mean, this guy is just incredible. And you're not going to ask him to play 18 minutes a night. You come in on the third line role, learn with these guys, right? He's that good. Play 10 to 13 minutes a night. Bring him up there. Play on that third line role. I think you get him in a think about this. I look at a guy like a Josh Anderson, right? From the Canadiens. Big body, he can score, but he's a middle 6 guy, right? Imagine him playing with a Hagel and Cirelli, where he can kind of stay back a little bit, let those guys do the forecheck, and just shoot the puck. He's got a cannon. Maybe he's good enough to put on the first power play unit on that one side if you don't like Radish there. Then Geeky comes back, and you have Geeky, Paul, and Isaac Howard. Yeah. Now you're looking at a third line where, all right, Geeky's going to come up motivated. Paul's a great 2-way player, and now you have Isaac Howard, who could be more offensively gifted than both of them, and he doesn't have to necessarily do all the heavy lifting.
Sure.
So I just think that makes a lot of sense for me. And going and waiting that 1 more year until next year and then giving him an opportunity to go play somewhere else, I think would be a huge misstep for Julien Brisebois. I think he wants him up here because I think you got to strike while the iron's hot. How many more cracks are you going to get at it with all of these guys in their prime? And I also look at McDonough, as great as he is, right? He's not getting any younger. He's the oldest of the group pretty much when it comes to the core guys. This is the year right here. And you said it before, the East is open, right? This is your chance, because if you can get hot, you got the goalie, you still got a top 5, top 10 defenseman, and you have arguably 2 of the top 10 forwards and one of the more clutch guys in Jake Gensel. Like, this is the year. Nobody seems to be really raising up. I think on either conference, really raising up and going, like, planting their flag on the ground. Hey, we're the best team. Like we've seen from the Lightning, like we've seen from the Bruins, like we've seen from other teams, like even Toronto and Florida. Like at times you look at their regular season, it's like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. Nobody's really doing that this year.
Right.
So you have the pedigree, you have the experience, like make this move in here, get this guy in, because one thing that this team hasn't had, Greg, is young players pushing the guys above them. We haven't seen that since Braden Point has come up, or Mikhail Sergachev. And I think Isaac Howard can do that. And let's say that's just, I think, low end. I don't think that there's a way Isaac Howard can come up to the big club and crap the bed. I just don't see it. Like, I don't see how he can play that bad. And then what is the ceiling? What if something happens where maybe he's the second line forward that plays with Hagel and Cirelli? Like, you're almost right. Maybe you throw him up there with Point and Kucherov, and then you put Gensel on that line. Now you're looking at a top 6 that who do you put your top D pair against? So I think Isaac Howard is that guy. You can look out and look at all the rentals, but that's the guy that's already in-house, top end talent. That's not going to cost you anything. And you can still go out there and get a middle six forward to help you out.
So would you have him maybe start in Syracuse just to kind of get his feet wet to a pro
I would
game
just
to a
bring,
degree?
I would maybe, but I would bring him up sooner rather than later. As soon as that season's over, get on the horn, get him up. We saw it with Chris Kreider. We saw it with Kale McCarr, right? Chris Kreider was a good player, but I don't think he was as good in college as we're seeing from Isaac Howard. And you saw how good he was for the Rangers in that first year. We saw how good Kale McCarr was. Like, we've seen this in hockey before. There is precedent. And again, it's one thing if you're bringing him up to be a top six guy. There is holes where he is in a position, he would fit in a position that they need. Sure. And you can't tell me that he is a worse option than Asimont, than Mitchell Chaffee, than even Gonsalves. And Gonsalves is playing better, but he's playing better with better talent. But he's not playing, he has the ability to play with top six forwards, but I don't know if he has the potential to be a top six forward. Does that make sense? Because I don't see Gonsalves going down to the third line and scoring 15, 20 goals, right? Because then he disappears, right? He can get the puck to Kucherov, but he doesn't have that, all right, I'm going to score, 20 goals, or I'm going to be a guy in the mix. So I just think it makes too much sense. Why? Like, you're going to let him marinate in college? There's no reason why this kid needs to go back to college. I don't know what 2 weeks in Syracuse is going to do him. Get him up here, get him in a room with some of these guys and learn how to work and get ready to roll.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, if I've always felt talent usually rises to the top, and if you've got a really talented player and you want to bring him up, then let's see what he can do. I think the one thing we've all discussed, which is why you're probably bringing this conversation up, is to better your team depth-wise in the bottom six.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't start there. Maybe he does, and then moves his way into a top six role.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. Yeah. I mean, look, if he's as talented as the numbers are suggesting, and everything you've just said, and the way the Lightning feel about him, Julien Brisebois is not shy to buck kind of, the conventional wisdom there. I think he will look at things and say what's best for the Lightning, and if that's the route they go, I'm okay with that.
I mean, think about the excitement too, Greg, right? Think about the excitement of having him in. I'm looking at it right now. Right now, as a junior at Michigan State, he's got the second most points in college hockey. He's got 43 points. He's only behind Aiden Fink from Penn State. So Isaac Howard in 30 games, 22 goals, 21 assists. I mean, and he shoots the puck, Greg, 136 shots. So this is a guy, and he's still a plus 17. So he's out there playing good hockey as well. He's not just out there like, I'm going to score and I don't care about my defensive end.
Yeah.
There's so many good players right now at the collegiate level. I mean, a lot of these guys are already accounted for when you look at like Z Buyam and, Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard, like those guys, were in Minnesota, they're with the Rangers, we're with Washington already. But you look at Isaac Howard and you're that high as a junior, right? Strike while the iron's hot. And I like when teams take chances, right? And we've seen that with Julien in the past, trading in these draft picks and doing all this stuff to, go get a Brandon Hagel, right? To go get a Blake Coleman. You can make a risk here. I'm not a believer, and I don't know if you are. I'm not a believer of like you bring up a guy too soon, you're gonna crush his confidence and stuff like that. Like, I think if a guy doesn't play well and he doesn't have the confidence and that ruins his career, like, was he really going to be that good anyway? Right?
It's fair. I think the thing you worry about with younger players who are skilled is burying them in a third or fourth line role and not developing that way. I have seen that over the years, and I think you have to have a balance there. I think you want to put them in the right position to be successful, especially early on, to give them some confidence. And I think you also want to have them come up and earn their way. So I think there is a little bit of a balance. But I think if you're going to do something with Howard, and he's a skilled player, which he is, I don't know if playing him on a fourth line makes a lot of sense either.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't put him there.
So from there, you got to figure it out.
Greg, what do you got going on the rest of the weekend, man? Lightning Radio Network.
Yeah, man. Well, we got a game, right? Sunday.
Yeah, buddy.
6 o'clock means we'll be on the airwaves at 5:30 tomorrow. Just a lot of stuff around the house, running the girls around, and hoping Enzo gets some sleep.
There you go. Did you text Phil for his birthday yesterday?
I didn't even know.
Oh, he texted me back. I was telling people on the show yesterday, this is Phil's response. TYCU, Sunday or Tuesday, emoji with black sunglasses.
Really? I'm gonna text him right now and say happy belated.
TYCU. They can't even say thank you, you lazy son of a gun. Greg Linnelli, Lightning Radio Network. He's texting Phil now. That's 2 N's, 2 L. Check him out on social media. Appreciate your time, my friend. I'll
You got
see
it,
you on
buddy.
Sunday. Thanks.
We'll talk soon.
All right, buddy.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You got it. Greg Linnelli, Lightning Radio Network, man. Don't want to miss that stuff. Great stuff there with Lightning Lunch, Power Lunch with Dave Michigan. And make sure you check them out. They do such a great job on Lightning Radio, man. Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to our guest today, JD Urso from UT, as well as Greg Linnelli from the Lightning Radio Network. And I appreciate everybody tuning in all week. 4 Nations was fantastic. Let's just hope that it continues to grow the game. Go check out tomorrow, 1 to 4, JJ Moser, Nick Paul, alongside Greg Wolf and Braden Coburn. GT Financial at Channel Side. Again, 1 to 4. You got to sign up, get your reservations. gtfinancial.org/channel side. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday at noon right here on the Jay Recher Podcast. I'm going.